If you'd like to contact the show, send us an email at liveonfourlegspodcast@gmail.com or follow us on any of our social media accounts on Facebook, Instagram at Live on Four Legs Podcast, and on Twitter at Live on Four Legs Pod.
I was going to save this one till later, but since we're on the subject, I was told by a local guy today, because I didn't, he said, you know what the N on the helmet stands for? Knowledge. I'm glad you like that joke. It cost me $20. And away we go.
You're listening to Live on Four Legs, the live Pearl Jam podcast experience, featuring
Mr. Stone Gossard. Fucking Cameron in the drum. Mr. Boom Gasper. You can call me Al, you can call me Ed, you just fucking call me, why don't you?
Hey everybody now, welcome to Live on Four Legs, a definitive live Pearl Jam podcast, and this week we are back to 2014. Last week we did a little bit of the Hometown series, and now we go back to working with some of the Patreon episodes that we're going to do. We're going to have a lot this month. I think the rest of February is all going to be Patreon episodes, so that should be a lot of fun. We're going to hear a lot of stories, especially today. 2014 Lincoln, Nebraska. That's probably a show that's not in your guys' minds, because when you think 2014, you think Moline, you think Milwaukee, maybe some of you think Detroit, maybe some of you, for me and John, we both went to the Memphis show, so those can be on our mind. But Lincoln, Nebraska, never, ever, ever was on my mind before it was requested for this show, and that's why we're here. We're here to learn, and we're here to appreciate no matter what shape or form or show it is. So without further ado, Randy Sobel over here, John Farrar over there.
Hello.
Good evening, sir. I just want to address something before we introduce our guest. I just kind of want to pat ourselves on the back real quick. Congratulations. We have gotten 100,000 downloads of the show.
Oh, nice.
I realized, I went through and I looked at our statistics, and it was not something that I ever really paid attention to, and it just said 101 downloads, and that obviously it's 101K. It said 101,000, so I'm like, oh, okay, that's cool. That means that's not 101 people. That's just accumulated episodes. So that's a great benchmark, though, and it shows that in just about 2.5 years we're headed in the right direction for sure.
Absolutely. Thanks to everybody who listens. Yeah, that's what I always say, whether you listen once or whether you listen every week, we appreciate it. Absolutely.
Yeah, and sometimes you can see with the stats that people that subscribe are downloading everything at once. So it's just crazy to see, like, okay, all the older episodes, like episode 5 and episode 9 and whatever we did back in 2018, 2019, early those days, are still being downloaded and still being listened to. I do talk to people sometimes that say, hey, I heard you, especially last week for Drop in the Park. They said, I heard you were doing Drop in the Park. I have to break off of, like, the Reading Festival. People are still going back and they want to listen to the shows. I just want to thank those people, because that, A, that's awesome, and B, like, that shows that you're dedicated to what we're doing, and this is all evergreen. The stories don't change, so it's
right.
Great. It's great. But today we are going to focus on Lincoln, Nebraska. Like I said, when you think of Nebraska, what do you think, John?
Farmland, the Little League World Series, football.
Ooh, that's a good one. Yeah, I think flyover state usually, if anything.
There's an album by a certain
Oh,
mentor
yeah,
that maybe comes to mind. We will get into that later.
yeah, possibly. I think that could come into play. When I think Nebraska and Pearl Jam, things don't usually register, and I went back and I looked at the history on it. It had been, oh, do the math. What is it? 22 years since they had been back to Nebraska. They were there in '91. They went to Omaha, kind of in that like October-ish tour, like really when they were starting to push the album and people were just starting to get to know them a little bit. And then they went back to Omaha right before they went on that big European tour, like around the time it seemed like that we were talking about last week that they were going to do that Gasworks show. So that
Yeah.
like May 1992. Never even sniffed the area, never went back, nothing like that. And 2014, there they are, Lincoln, Nebraska. And what can I say? Like, that's just what they do. They want to show up to every single city that they can to get every fan that loves them the chance to experience them.
Yeah, they'd never really done that tour where you start in Texas and you just go straight up. Like I think they did Austin and Memphis. There was then to Lincoln and up through, of course, Moline and Detroit.
They started in Cincinnati. They went Cincinnati to St. Louis for this one, I think.
Yeah, so just all straight in the middle there. I don't think they'd ever done that before.
No, yeah, it's weird. They usually start like all completely up in the West, or like
Yeah, they
were
had done the East
supposed
Coast
to
leg
start-
in 2013 and then the West Coast leg in 2013. So
Right.
this was kind of filling in the gaps of that 2013 tour.
right, starting in Pittsburgh for that one. And I can't remember. I think the West Coast tour might have started in Dallas, if I'm not mistaken. So they went
Yeah.
kind of like what you're talking about,
Yeah.
Dallas through Oklahoma. So I hate to have this conversation and not bringing our guest in because that is awfully rude of us, but I'm going to introduce him in now. Introducing to the show, you've heard his voice before. If you listen to our deprogrammed episode, he was one of the voices. He was one of the Trashy Six, and we invite him back because he's requested this show, and we make good on our promises. So here he is, Curtis Hames. Welcome back to the podcast. Hello, welcome.
Thank you for having me, boys. Hey,
Yeah, this should be a good time, my friend.
we're in my wheelhouse here. To clarify, this 2014 tour, there was 2 trips to Austin city limits,
Right.
and so it was kind of like a little bit of a spiral around the heartland. Very cool to have them hit Lincoln, but I think it was just between Austin, Texas, and Detroit. Let's find 2 shows. So they did Tulsa and they did Lincoln.
Right.
I want to
And-
clarify just about me.
Yeah.
I am a Heartland guy, but I'm definitely not a Nebraska guy. I'm in eastern Iowa and absolutely positively do not claim Nebraska. That area of the country west of Des Moines is a little culturally different than what we have over here. I'll be politically correct about that part of it. This tour I freaked out. I went to Philly in 2013 and did both nights there, thinking that would kind of maybe be it for a little while. So when they announced this, I think it was early in the year in 14, I freaked out. I didn't think I had enough time to decide which shows or how many. Without driving more than 5 hours, I could have conceivably gone to 6 shows. So it was trying to figure out which ones to go to. So I ended up going to 3. Chronologically, it went Lincoln and then Moline, and then I went up to St. Paul. So Moline was definitely the priority for me. Just that's the closest by far. That's 75 miles from my home, and far and away the closest the band's ever played to where I live. So that was a top priority. Obviously that worked out. It ended up being a pretty okay show. These other 2, no regrets. So I do, and we'll get to it when we get there, but The only time I've ever booed Pearl Jam.
Whoa.
So a little teaser
Wow.
there. We'll get to that later.
Interesting. So that's a wrinkle that I didn't expect from this. I thought you were like, okay, I want to pitch this show because I got some good stories and, it's something you guys usually kind of hit East Coast and bigger shows or bigger areas. So I thought, okay, if that's the move he wants to play here, no, okay, there's something to tee up here. There's something to look forward to in this episode.
Yeah.
Okay.
Very, very glad to address the East Coast and West Coast bias here on this show and everywhere.
There's not too much West Coast bias. There's Pearl Jam's hometown, and that's about it.
Yeah, very, very proud to be the one representing this Heartland tour. Very, very excited that they had such a big loop all around me, and definitely wouldn't trade it for anything. I really hemmed and hawed and changed which shows I was prioritizing. Wouldn't trade it for anything.
So you said this was the first one you went to chronologically. Walk us through the day and getting there. Like, what kind of seats did you have? Who did you go with? Walk us through kind of the anticipation of that day.
Up until this point, my tour buddy had been my wife. And between getting rained on pretty heavily on night one of Pearl Jam 20 and Wrigley 2013, she went into semi-retirement.
Even for arena shows?
Even for arena shows.
Wow.
I think all these were weeknights. And we actually drove and stayed the night in Council Bluffs. So Abby was retired, and two of my buddies from work, who we've become extremely close since then, I had my 2 pairs of tickets through the 10 Club. One of them was my buddy Lee, and he went to Lincoln with me. And my other buddy Cody, he went to Moline with me. And they were just learning about the band a little bit at the time, so I had the pleasure of introducing them to Live Pearl Jam for this trip.
And one got the better experience than the other, obviously.
I think they both had a lot of fun. Absolutely.
Okay.
Moline, obviously a bigger deal in the benefit of hindsight, but I don't know. I think this honestly might be a better first show for somebody.
I was going to say this is a good starter kit kind of show, especially in the encore. You get a lot of notable known songs that like back to back to back to back. You're like, these are all hits. This is fantastic.
Lot of hits, a lot of recognizable songs played pretty straightforward. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. Any other stories about the day that you want to get into, or should we just jump into the set? Like, here's the problem about 2014 is that historically we're almost 7 years into that. That's kind of crazy to say, but I mean, like when you look back on the Lightning Bolt tour, what's there to say aside from they were promoting Lightning Bolt? It's not like 2003 or 1995 where there were things going on with the band. This was a fairly neutral time where people, they toured almost every year and people were celebrating them. So there's not really much to say.
No, Lightning Bolt era is not really that kind of a thing where like there's some big spectacular story or some wacky event. It's pretty straightforward. Like they're not in the news for some controversy. The album came out a year before and they did a couple loops, and here's the third loop here. So songs are still pretty new to us here.
Yeah, for sure. And if those Philadelphia shows were the only ones that you did in 2013, then, you're still waiting for a lot of those Lightning Bolt songs for sure. All right. Speaking of Lightning Bolt, how do we start this show? The same way that almost every single Lightning Bolt tour show starts with. And you get the little eerie kind of keyboard sound coming in, and Mike, you kind of hear him with the bow, and they go into this version of Pendulum.
Can't know what's high till you've been out so long. The future's bright, all lit up with nowhere to go. To and fro, the pendulum goes. shadow left me long ago.
We haven't done Pendulum in some time, but this is a pretty solid version, because you get Ed in the middle. That easy left me a long time ago, and he hits that note and he holds it for what feels like that whole part that Mike is kind of doing his thing on. And then you have the added Jeff's backup vocals in that, which honestly, out of all the times that I've seen Pendulum, which is probably like 6 or 7 throughout all those shows that happened those years, I don't remember a time where Jeff was singing backup vocals like that.
Yeah, I think it's cool the way they layered it together. Definitely heavy Ed belting it out. Yeah, I kind of knew we were in for something that he had that much gas in the tank. Vocally, too, is what I was thinking. The other thing, I'd seen this song before, the year before, but I didn't realize Mike was playing it with a bow. We had very good seats on Mike's side. I think we were maybe 6 or 8 rows up, one section over. So I had an excellent view of Mike. And yeah, I kind of had my mind blown a little bit. I had no idea he was playing it with a bow, and kind of seeing him like float around in the dark a little bit, and Ed hitting that note hard. Yeah, it really set the tone for me. I was very fired up.
Those are great seats to have if you got the good view of Mike. That's where you want to be. Yeah, I think by 2014 they had kind of fine-tuned Pendulum a little bit. I think at first they didn't really know what to do with it other than just kind of play it straight. And I think playing it almost every night, like you mentioned in 2013, they really got comfortable with it. And by this time, like, yeah, bring it back for this little mini run here in 2014, and yeah, they're totally comfortable with it. They can totally play around with it and do some different things. And it was kind of low key, like it doesn't have the kind of emotional intensity that like a Long Road or a Release does, but it's just kind of a low key way to kind of like ease into the show. And yeah, I liked it.
Also, you're getting 2 other perennial opener section songs that are coming right after. It doesn't need that emotional attachment. It's kind of like the subtle way of easing you into the emotional attachment, because you follow up, you get Sometimes going into Nothing Man. And I really, for these, I thought that Sometimes was spectacular. And this is not a song that I usually think live is like gonna blow me away, but this version came really, really close, and maybe on another listen, I'm gonna enjoy it much more than I actually did.
Sometimes I know, sometimes I rise, sometimes I fall, sometimes I know, sometimes I cringe, sometimes I live, sometimes I walk, sometimes I kneel, sometimes I speak of nothing at all. Sometimes I reach to myself here above.
It feels like he's just shattering those vocals when he keeps running down. Sometimes I know, sometimes. It feels like he's shattering during this point. So he's building off that momentum that he had off Pendulum, and he knows he's got a lot in the tank, like you said. And it feels like he brings it into Sometimes. And even at the end, you hear that they extend that jam a little bit. They usually don't extend it that much. I really wonder if this kind of kicked the gears in to make them think, hey, maybe we can do No Code in full at some point. I don't know if that's, maybe it's a trigger, but this version is really good to make one think, let's tackle the whole entire album.
Yeah, absolutely. This is 6 days before Moline, and just to kind of get all the information from Ed on that. When did he decide that? Could it have been when this song sounded so good, right? Mm-hmm. This version of it, the word that comes to my mind is very full. Like it's, in my mind, it's like from the 2000 tour, and This is he plays a little bit bigger, right?
Yeah, it feels a little more theatrical for sure.
Yes.
Yeah, and you get Jeff on the upright bass early on too. I thought that sounded really good, and I even think that they had Moline in their back pocket at this point. I think this is probably practice because you get 3 no code songs in this set.
Mm-hmm.
I think that they're already starting to kind of like run through some stuff, and like I said, I think see what needs some work and see what they need to sound check. But I think they were already kind of planting the seeds for that here, definitely.
I wonder, because there are 3 songs at the show played off another kind of obscure album, I wonder if they were kind of back and forth between the 2.
Could be. Yeah, I thought about that too.
Yeah, something to discuss. Nothing Man following up sometimes, again, like great back-to-back. And I thought the standout from Nothing Man was just Boom getting his section to kind of shine in the she don't want him, she don't need him part. Like, it kind of made a really nice bridge for Ed to connect with the audience and kind of get sort of a backdrop to him. And I feel like you felt Boom in that version more than you usually do for other Nothing Men.
Yeah, for me it was Mike, doing the End of the Sun. Like he's he doesn't have a lot to do in this song. It's not a song with an epic solo or anything, but he's just reaching up into the sky during that Into the Sun part, really getting the crowd into it, and then the crowd sounds great on this. It's really their first chance to kind of let loose with a sing-along after those first 2. So yeah, the crowd sounds great on this.
Agreed. Like it's you want to say, is it a Nebraska crowd? Well, of course it is. That's where they are. But this sounds like a crowd that can go toe to toe with other crowds that you expect to be like this.
I don't know about Eastern Nebraska, but Nothing Man did get a little bit of radio play on our rock stations. So.
So what you're saying is they're just following the hits here.
I guess I can't say for sure.
It's a great start to the set and kind of eases you in, and nothing like wash, nothing really rare, but it primes you. It primes you for what's about to come. And Ed kind of, before getting into the meat and potatoes of this early set, he addresses everything and he says, "Good evening. Let's see everybody, because we haven't seen you guys ever." Mentions a lot of artists have actually played in Lincoln, Nebraska. Rod Stewart, Katy Perry, and James Taylor. And he's like, but this needs to get broken in a little bit. We need to rattle the boat. So hang on. Let's really start this show. And that gets you a little section here. I like to call this this is the going away section. Go into Why Go into Getaway, that really kind of fires you up and starts. And Go really feels like, okay, you kind of get a speech and you're ready to rev up. Go was a really good choice to come out of that. The transition from Go into Why Go was perfect. Powerful McCready stuff in Go, like really great version of this. And yeah, McCready already feels like he's at the top of this game. They both Go and Why Go. I really like both of these for Mike.
Yeah, very, very good night for Mike. And this was kind of where we were off to a hot start. He's going to do 3 ballads and then take time out to talk. You really got to punch him in the mouth. And Go is an excellent choice. The light show is a little bit dark, and it was just like a lot of flashing reds. Holy cow, it was intense. Why Go? Like, maybe this is just from spending so many years just exclusively listening to the 2000 tour, but Why Go still feels like kind of a rare song to me. So
I guess that makes sense if you're paying attention to the binaural right out there.
Right. Yeah, when you only listen to the era where they never played it, gosh, it sure is rare, right? So I was fired up. The drums there, like I'm close enough where like that drum beat at the beginning, I kind of feel it in my chest. Certainly my section, and we'll talk about this more as it goes on, but the section I was in was extremely loud for that part of it. So yeah, we were very fired up.
Yeah, very cool. And speaking of the 2000s, you get Mike doing a little spacey intro guitar stuff on Why Go. That was very cool. But did you guys notice, like, I want to shout out Ed, that we talk about this setlist construction. Look at the first 6 songs on this. For a town that they've never played in, to come out and do new song, then go in reverse, no code, Vitalogy versus 10, then another Lightning Bolt song. That's got to be on purpose to give these people kind of a taste of the early years, because they've never played there before. I think that's that was perfect and a really nice touch at the beginning of this set to kind of highlight each of those early albums for these people who've never seen them before in this town. I thought that was very, very well done.
The whole show, and specifically in this front end of it, no matter what your favorite is, you get a little taste of it, right?
Exactly, yeah. You get some rare albums, like I said before, 3 No Code songs, 3 binaural songs. I think almost every album is hit. Riot Act is hit. Maybe Avocado's not hit, but it's still, you kind of spread the darts a little bit. This doesn't feel like they made it specifically for somewhere that needs a hit show, that's for sure. And especially the lightning bolt song that you're getting right here after all of these is Getaway. And when was the last time that we've covered Getaway? Oh, I don't want to guess because it's been a very long time, I'm sure.
They don't play Getaway very often.
No, they don't. They've only played it. Let me get the numbers up. I think
16 times total.
16, yeah. This is Song Appreciation Week for Getaway. This is all good vibes here, all good feelings. I thought, honestly, this might have been the best live version that I've heard of this song. I think maybe the more and more I hear it, I like it better live. And I don't know, I've heard some version from 2016 and I'm like, okay, maybe not so much, but I feel like they had it here. I feel like this was pretty close.
Yeah, absolutely. This is not a song that they have their arms around in general. But this is way, way far and away the closest to having it figured out, I think. Of the 16 times, they maybe played it in 3 different keys, it feels like.
Yeah.
I like the tempo here. I feel like maybe it is a little bit higher, closer to the album, because they felt maybe like that day Ed could pull it off. In general, not my favorite, but I know we're being very positive here, so...
We're trying to.
Yeah, this is an outstanding version of it, and this is honestly on the extremely short list of songs where I think the album version is better than what they do with it live, but absolutely positively pulled it off here. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's one that they've never, like I said, they've never been able to really nail it. It doesn't feel like, and I think that's probably why it's kind of been dropped in the last couple of years. You don't see it nearly as much as you did even back then, and it hasn't had a long history to begin with. But I'm like talked about Charlotte. I saw the first time they ever played it. It was a little rough, but it could be such a cool moment when it kicks in at the end there, and the song kind of goes into overdrive. I feel like that could be something if they had really stuck with it and tried to nail it. Could have been turned into something pretty cool. But yeah, not one that gets talked about very often. But it's a lead-off track, and those always get highlighted. This is kind of like the exception to the rule, where like the lead-off track doesn't really stick around and doesn't really get a highlighted feature in the set.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't until that Charlotte show that they actually played it. That was like 15 or 16 shows on that East Coast leg where, they just completely ignored it. For the performance-wise, I thought they really pulled it off here. Yeah, good version, and I have to agree, better album song than it is live. However, this version makes you think that, okay, this had potential back then. I don't think they ever went back to the way that this sounded, but it still had, if there's potential, that potential could be tapped again. So we shall see. right after Getaway, you kind of get the whammy bar tease, and you love the whammy bar tease because everybody has a sense of what it is. You feel that pop. You feel that pop from the crowd right after they hear that, and they're like, oh, I know this. And Corduroy is fantastic. One to put kind of in the middle of your set, and really, you you need it for the section to kind of close off, and then the section is going to take an interesting turn after this. So this is kind of a good ending point for that.
Absolutely. Corduroy, always good.
I actually felt like this one was kind of missing something at the beginning. I don't know if it was just a guitar tone or something, but it felt like it didn't really have that kind of spark in the first half of it that it normally has. But it did pick up at the end. I think when Cameron kicks in and Mike kicks in, they kind of picked it back up to where it needed to be. But I was kind of you wanted to have that kind of tension to it, and this one just didn't have that, I think, at the beginning. But I think this is the part where they kind of like woke up a little bit, and this main set gets really good from here on out.
The thing I noticed at this point, Ed's wearing a new Dragon shirt, and it got me to think, oh, well, I thought New Dragons was kind of a recent-ish thing because they had changed their Instagram and Twitter accounts to New Dragons, the remaining SoundCloud members. And then I realized that, kind of like the Piss Bottle Men, Soundgarden had played some secret shows under the New Dragons name because it happens to be an anagram of Soundgarden. So the more you know. But I think it's cool that Ed is actually wearing a New Dragon shirt here. But yeah, you've captured the attention of your audience. They're in, they're locked, and now you have Ed he's going to play up the hometown crowd. So right afterwards, he's going to grab something from a crowd member. It's a Cornhuskers jersey that has the number 10 and Vetter written on the back. And he said, "This is for the end of the night when I turn into a matador." And he starts kind of swinging it like a bullfighter a little bit. And speaking of the color red, and that's all that's associated with it, this is a great building. But the building and the castle where the football team plays is pretty intense. When the bus pulls up and the opposing team makes their way there, you can almost hear a bus full of football players and their balls shrinking, whatever sound that is. I'm going to guess that because the stadium is so imposing, because the fans are so imposing, they bust out the red jerseys and all that. That's got to be a thing. I don't know.
I didn't care for that.
Well, you're also same division, right? The same conference.
Yeah, as an Iowa Hawkeye fan, I didn't care for that.
Was this
talking
it?
About this is it. When he says the ball shrinking, I didn't care for that. So that was there was a boo for me there.
That's fair. I thought you were gonna boo a song. And
no. I would never boo. There's no boo-worthy songs. There's
He just hates the Beatles.
Right. Well, we'll get to that.
Yeah.
He dovetailed into there from the N on the helmet is for knowledge, which is funny. Absolutely a joke that we say here in Iowa and have been hearing since I was a kid. So there was a make good on saying that the opposing team's balls shrink. So Ed and I, we were okay after that.
It can only last for so long. He says, the joke cost me $20 and the next song is dedicated to my Uncle Johnny who couldn't be here tonight. Whenever he says Uncle Johnny, I'm thinking that is a dedication to Johnny Ramone, because this is that, Light Years has the context to it. And I want to say that Johnny had passed about 10 years to the date around that time. So maybe it was September or October of 2004. This is around the 10-year anniversary. So I'm wondering if he's on his mind, which usually he is when he's shouting out Johnny. So this section right here is Light Years, Mind Your Manners, Sirens. Light Years is great. I thought, especially the thing that just popped to me, Ed in the final chorus just kind of belting that, "Oh, I need you here." That was a really cool moment to me. There's just something about these songs back to back to back. It feels like they kind of were trying to get Mind Your Manners in the set somewhere, because it's the single of the album, so to speak, and it couldn't fit anywhere else, so they needed to just slide it in, and it didn't quite fit. It kind of, when you think of the set, and there's just some shows and some songs that I kind of forget that songs were played at certain shows. And I would have probably, if I had gone to the show, I probably would have forgotten that Minor Manners was even played, because it's just not, unless it's part of like the starting 4 or 5, especially in the middle, sandwiched in between these two, it's not that notable.
Strongly agreed. Light Years into Sirens into Present Tense is like a hell of a run, and it feels like this is in the way of that.
Mind Your Manners is one that it's never really been a moment at a show. Like it's what, 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes. It kind of comes and goes, and like it's a chance for McCready to show off, and then we're kind of getting to the mid-set McCready section here. So that was my thought behind it. But yeah, it's never really going to be a highlight or a benchmark of a set. It's always just kind of either leading up to something or coming off of something.
Yeah, they all are the same. Like you can't ever really differentiate which one version from the other, which is not like a criticism, but where they have it here is not a showcase for it. It's just kind of there.
Yeah, like I said before, I think they feel the need to add it in because it's the song that they've been promoting with this album tour, and because they had such a solid top 7, it didn't fit in there, so it needed to fit somewhere else in the main set. And small blip, but it's just something. Sirens was great, though. I think Sirens had a lot of momentum, and kind of it put the crowd in the mood. It felt like they were trying to set a certain mood. And again, like you said, Sirens going into Present Tense is very, very strong, very good, especially the way you come out of Present Tense. It all flows together very nicely. That I really liked that ending, the extension on it, where they keep going and they do the Peter Frampton tag, Baby I Love Your Way, and like this is, I don't know why they haven't done legit tags with Sirens more often. It kind of has that same, they could do like a We Belong Together kind of tag like Black. It doesn't have to be a Modern Girl, it doesn't have to be any of the daughter tags. It could just be like one line of something, and that's all you need from it. Very simple.
It reminds me a lot of Wish List. Like I think of Sirens and Wish List in the same kind of type of Pearl Jam song. I think the little, I call it the Sirens reprise, like the little acoustic part where it has everybody singing along. Yeah, I really like that. I think that adds a lot to the song. The Peter Frampton line was a little strange, but sure, okay. If you wanna go with that, go with it. I know he's
friends with Peter Frampton.
Exactly. Yeah, I don't mind Sirens at all. It's probably in my top 3 or 4 songs on Lightning Bolt.
Yeah, your theory on Wish List, John, is that's how I feel about Sirens. Like there's just money left on the table here. This is a song that could be really like a live staple, and it never got there.
Well, especially when you bookmark it with the song that comes after it, it's going to overshadow it. Like you look at these Sirens into Present Tense. Like obviously, Present Tense is the one that is the big moment that you're going to remember.
Yeah, absolutely. And Present Tense was just about perfect here.
Very good.
Mike is doing a little bit something different. It sounds really, really good, like some sort of like arpeggiated solo kind of thing.
Yeah, it felt like a different pedal, or know what you're talking about. I couldn't really put my finger on it, and I listened to this version a dozen times, and I still kind of don't understand what we're talking about. It's different, and like I really have a hard time putting my finger on why.
The whole ending, I feel like the whole ending was a huge, and this is part of Present Tense's lore here, is that it kind of lifts you up, and then it's like kind of like a steam engine that drives, and then it slows down. It's kind of like when the plane's about to land. It's a perfect plane landing, and this had a very theatrical, very big ending to it. There was a lot of like extra things going on that made, they kind of hold out a note a little longer, and it made it feel a little bit more powerful than, maybe early versions felt.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, but we're going to be digging into the song on Patreon coming up in the next month or so, right?
Yes, we are. So maybe we don't talk about it anymore, and maybe we hold our thoughts until that moment.
Yeah, that's going to be a fun one.
It is. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. I was secretly rooting for it, and you guys did right. All right. Well, this is really cool. Coming out of present tense again. Like I said, big ending. It's going to feel big. It's going to feel like an arena kind of ending. And then you get, without any prompting, and I've never seen them do the Eruption solo without any prompting, without Ed saying, and here's Mike McCready, just spotlight on Mike and just let him go wild. And why the hell not? Like, you don't need context with this. It's Eruption.
General, Eruption is not one of my very favorites, but being so close to like be close enough to the point where I could see Mike McCready's fingers, absolutely a treat. Very, very glad to have seen this.
Yeah, see, this doesn't do anything for me. It just feels like he's kind of just showing off. Like, that doesn't really do anything for me. Like, I know he's very technically gifted, and I don't need him to prove that to me by playing part of a solo from a Van Halen song from 1983 or whenever it was. But yeah, I mean,
part of a solo.
Whatever. It just doesn't do anything for me. But I get like where if you're there and I'm sure they're probably a little bit playing to the crowd here. This is probably a little bit of like, oh, it's Nebraska. They'll like Van Halen. Like they like guitar stuff. Like throw it in there. And I get it. If you're there, it looks very cool and it gets a big crowd thing. And I, actually, as the lead into Even Flow, it makes a little bit of sense, but because that is the Mike song, but kind of a little preview there. But that was a nice tie-in. But yeah, usually I would just skip this normally.
Usually, yeah, I thought it was a great transition into Even Flow, and kind of as a follow-up, when Mike starts the solo on Even Flow, it sounds really weird because he's not in his usual like startup tone with it. It sounds like he's playing in a different key or in a different spot on his guitar. Like maybe is he in that beginning trying to channel Eddie Van Halen again? And I'll have to say it kind of falls a little bit flat, and he finds his way back to playing like Hendrix. But it's interesting that he tried it.
Yeah, dovetailing that Van Halen vibe into Even Flow, and like even those verse and chorus verse before we get to him again, he's trying to like stay in that Eruption mode. Yeah, at least at the beginning, and then the Jimi Hendrix kicks in. And some stereotypes are true about the Midwest. We do love Van Halen.
You would have to think that this is probably coming back at a lot of shows whenever the shows do come back. So hang on to that. It's probably going to be a moment for a lot of people if they are in the Midwest. Maybe you can expect it. So.
And it gives Ed a little, minute and a half to a break to go back and drink something. And yeah, so yeah, I would see this coming back for sure.
Yep, and Ed gives all the credit to Mike after this. He says he's one in a billion and lets the crowd just kind of shower him with love, both Mike and Matt. And it's just we're grateful to be in this group and be invited places like this to play. And the more you live and see, the more you pay attention, the more you appreciate. And it's hard to take things for granted, like your knees, because the world revolves around your knees or your lungs or your kids or your wife and your brain and the planet. We're faced with the biggest challenges. Time and life is really fucking precious. I feel like that is the theme for the Lightning Bolt tour whenever he has something powerful to say. Life is precious. The fragility of life always comes into play, usually either before the song that we're about to get into now or before Sirens. And he kind of mentions the guy in the mohawk in front might be saying, yeah, his time is precious, play another song, but calls for another bottle and says a few more words about how precious the planet is, which is a great segue going into Infallible, another Lightning Bolt song that we're getting from here. And at this point, I'm just thinking, like, I don't love Infallible, but everything is played so tight at the show that everything, it's moving. They're in a groove right now. And, you know, you can feel and know when this kind of Pearl Jam is happening in the mid-set.
Yeah, I don't care for this song.
There it is. You weren't booing it, but you don't care.
No, I wasn't booing it. I'm, like, really feeling a certain kind of vibe, like being there. I'm riding pretty high. And the way my body clock was feeling, I wasn't ready for like a pump of the brakes here, like this song is. It's not my favorite.
Well, this is where John kicks you off the podcast.
Yeah, I'll be the devil's advocate here. I love this song. It might be my favorite one on Lightning Bolt. And I think the speech that he gives before is really nice. And, you know, it kind of starts off where it's kind of the evolution of the Dad Ed speech where he's kind of like, starts off, he doesn't really know what he's talking about, and he's kind of maybe telling a joke that doesn't really land, but then he kind of turns it into something kind of emotional and beautiful, and like the little lead into Infallible is really, really good. And I think this whole part of that back half of the main set from Sirens on is very, very good. Like a lot of great versions and very well paced out. Like we said, a couple of binaural songs, a Riot Act song, some hits mixed in there, a deep cut from Lightning Bolt. I really, really like this. And Infallible's a great version. It's got a great message behind it, and then you hit right back in after with the crowd favorites.
You're getting Evolution, and then you get God's Dice Insignificance, and you get Half Full. So that's a really great section right there. And before kind of like the tie into all this, there's a story. And there's a story about a kid, and there's a kid in the front row. I guess he has a sign. You can't really tell, but Ed addresses, there must be a sign. And Ed says, it's your birthday. How old are you turning? He's turning 6 years old. So asks if he's going to pull an all-nighter, asks if he wants some coffee or if he wants some wine, and mentions that the next song is going to be about the atomic bomb and Tomahawk missile. And he's now going off and saying,
one Tomahawk missile is $1.5 million. You can tell your teacher this tomorrow. And I was going to tell you more, but just keep that in mind. This, what's your name? This is for you, Louis. We're putting this whole planet in your hands. You can do it. You can do it. All right? You got a lot of support. All right, Louis? My middle name, by the way.
Louis kind of becomes part of the show for the next two songs. It's very, very funny. And in moments, especially in Half Full, he's pretty much singing to him. He kind of face to face gets in with Louis and he's talking to him. Won't you save the world? He's calling Louis. He's saying, you're the future, kid. Like, this is all you. This all kind of is a great tie-in for this little part.
Love the Louis interaction. How cool is that? Like, this is real dad hours here. And that little stretch of meandering, and John said it, you said it very well. The speech starts without, he doesn't know what the punchline is here, but he's trying to lead to something funny or poignant or both or whatever. And this one hits pretty well. He's, talking about this kid who's fixing to turn 6 at midnight and offers him wine, but he's also, he's got to teach him something because he might miss school the next day. Because I think this is on a Tuesday. So he taught him about current events in a very typical Ed fashion, and saying that every Tomahawk missile is $1.5 million. So I'm very jealous of this 6-year-old boy, which is totally appropriate for me, that one of my favorite songs is dedicated to him. So,
well, talk about it, because this is when I think, and I just kind of, this is how my mind works. When I think of certain songs, I connect certain people to certain songs, and you're probably pretty pumped and excited that when I do think of Insignificance, I'm like, okay, that's a Curtis song to me. So what is it? And I know you're covering it on Better Band pretty soon. Am I right about that?
That's correct. We recorded that a while ago, so it'll be coming out here whenever it fits in the track listing here. So in the coming months. I live in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, and we have a lot of manufacturing here. Collins Aerospace is here. I have family and in-laws. We're part of that military industrial complex the same way that Seattle is, which is that theme of insignificance, right? So, and again, not to step on this forthcoming pod and plug to Better Band podcast. This will.
Oh, we're the same.
Yes, yeah, it's all family here. Yeah, it feels like that's something that the band and I have in common, and it's kind of this shared thing that we have. Meanwhile, it also has this moment that just builds to maybe one of my top 10 20-second stretches in all of Pearl Jam, is where that bridge just builds and builds and builds, and then it comes down to that really aggressive staccato strumming. I love this tune, and this version of it very, very much lived up to my standard of it.
I'm down the road from Lockheed, so I'm with you there on that. That's something for sure. And yeah, Insignificance has the drop and then the build back up, like you mentioned, is very, very well done in this. That was absolutely a highlight. And again, this section, all these songs are highlights. So you go back to Do the Evolution, where he says, he shuts out, like South America. And Mike and Jeff doing the little sacrament thing. There's a great Stone solo. They talk about it. There's a little nod. He instead of 2010, he shouts out, "Oh, 2020!" Like little did he know what we would be going through there. God's Dice is absolutely great. Like a deep cut. That's normally they'll throw a deep cut deep in the set like this, and God's Dice is great right here. I thought very well done. And then and then you get the speech with Lewis and the half full, oh my God, the lights come down and they're playing with the lights and they right up and singing to the kid.
Lewis, you can do it. You can do it. You can do it.
Not a bad moment in this little group of songs here.
Nope. Yeah, it was fantastic, and then they kind of end half full, where Ed kind of mentions, he said, I got 2 girls at home and I didn't think I ever needed a boy, but now I'm cool with it. Now Lewis is here. He's got me thinking. Definitely Lewis made an impact there. And that kid that's 6 years old is now 13 years old. Or, going to be 13 years old this year. So that kid is almost a teenager. Yeah.
He's probably he's got Zoom high school in the morning, so yeah.
Hope that kid knows how to listen to podcasts because we've talked about him a lot in the last 3-4 minutes. Better Man, Porch, 2 biggies to end your set. And, man, you guys can talk about Better Man because I want to talk about Porch. Better Man was great, but Porch is like a major, major highlight for me for this show.
Yeah. Just want to say briefly, Save It for Later tag made an impression on me, very much like this version of it. But yes,
they kind of change it up a little bit because he doesn't actually, it's not as routine as it usually is.
No, we took a little break there to dedicate to Elizabeth, I think he says.
Yes.
And then kind of says, like, don't be depressed anymore, and kind of uses that vocal to kind of dovetail into Save It for Later.
And you get a cool moment of Ed and Mike kind of jamming together too. You always, like I say, I always look for those moments where they kind of pair off and you get 2 people kind of playing off each other. And Ed and Mike is always really good when they're and Ed's trying to keep up, and it's really well done in that little jam section of Better Man. Excellent version of Better Man here.
Wasn't it during Better Man? And I'm not sure if it was. My notes are a little fudgy here, but I'm not sure. I think it was during Better Man where Ed addresses the Mike side and says, "Look at Mike's side. Look at how energetic Mike's side is," because Mike is pogoing and he's jumping up and down, and Ed's like, "Come on, middle section, let's go here. Let's start going." So there's kind of a little rivalry that's been built.
We were very proud of ourselves on Mike's side. We were definitely getting after it.
Porch, man. Porch is really, really good from this show. Of course, the orbs are moving up and down all over the place. Jeff and Mike are playing off of each other, and it's really great. And it's filling with energy, and it just feels like they're going in different directions. They're trying something new. They're playing this pretty much every night at this point in the same spot. This is becoming the Porch spot to close out the main set. And this doesn't feel run-of-the-mill. This feels special. This feels like it's more appropriate for, to switch it up a little bit. Stone gets basically his own solo over Mike, and that's what kind of flourishes and makes it interesting here. And then Ed gets on the... I don't know if you heard this, but when he got on the orb, he gets on the orb and starts swinging. He says Miley Cyrus.
Like Miley Cyrus.
Like Miley Cyrus. And
gives you a hint of what his kids are listening to.
Exactly. Which, I mean, look at who just covered Pearl Jam in the last year. That's right. And, that's who they're in close contact with. Chucks the mic into the crowd, got the crowd to sing a little bit, and then smashes the mic stand to end it. Like, great set closer here. And this is coming off of, obviously, I'm not going to compare dropping the Park Porch to this Porch, but like other porches that we've heard that are very similar, similar spots, similar era, I just kind of just brush it off as saying, all right, it's just the end of the set, get into the next thing. But this was well above average, this version. Very, very good.
They absolutely let it cook. 8.5 minutes. Very much enjoyed being on Mike's side, but I have a memory of like the fucking Porch solo is by Stone, and I'm on Mike's side. I remember being like halfway hot about that. So shout out to the Stone side, folks.
Yeah, I mean this can still be a showstopper when they want it to be. Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, I'd love to have them bring it back and have them maybe close with it once or twice.
A little bit of throwback back to '92. Why the hell not? Of course.
Yeah, they let it cook. This is very good.
Yeah, I agree. This is gonna end
all
up
kinds of shenanigans going on with this. Yeah,
of course. It's what you want. It's what you want to see visually from them. So we're at the encore here. Let's take a little bit of a break and let's let you in on a little secret, and that's that we have other stuff that you can listen to at any time. And yeah, there's lots of stuff that you can listen to on the regular platforms on Spotify and Apple. You guys should subscribe there, by the way, because subscriptions do help. And but this subscription that we're going to talk about right now is through Patreon, and we get Patreon donations every month, and we have 3 separate tiers. If you guys want to help out the show and get more content and be involved with kind of the Live on Four Legs community, this is the way to do it. I'm going to give Curtis the floor here, because Curtis has been a patron for a while now, and being a patron has gotten you into the catbird seat right here. So tell them all the things, whatever you like about Patreon, and even the things that you don't like about Patreon. Be as transparent as you can be.
The things I don't like about Patreon, there's too much to listen to, and I can't keep up with it.
Oh, that's horrible. I'm so sorry.
That's like when you're at the job interview and they're like, what are your weaknesses? Like, yeah, I don't really have any weaknesses. It's that question.
I'm
You
a
kinda
little-
set him up for that.
I'm a little overweight.
Yeah,
Right.
I saw him.
I worked too hard.
Yes. This is a community that you guys have created, and I feel honored and privileged to have been part of it. You guys steer the ship, but there's definitely a lot of input that you have from your listeners, and it's like joining a church. You know, you can go on the holidays, or you can go every week, or you can really get involved. And Patreon is kind of that next level. So these weekly shows are. I don't want to give this a backhanded compliment, because you just came off of maybe one of your best one ever with Drop in the Park, but the show reviews are not quite on the level of the really special episodes, and I think that's the Evolution series. You guys absolutely outdo yourself, and this is the weekly shows are SmackDown and Raw, and Evolution series is WrestleMania, man. Those are excellent shows. Your $1, $5, $10 a month.
I don't get that reference, but I'll take your word for it.
It's good, John. It's good.
Right. Yeah, it's a compliment. We jack around on the Discord. These guys are very accessible.
Yeah, shout out to the Discord. We haven't done that in a few weeks. Yeah, like definitely if you're interested, join our Discord. The link should be around. Like, yeah, we have a lot of fun over there.
For sure. And I think that you're one of those people that I've always said, like, you know, there's no doubt about it. If I ask Curtis for something, he's got an opinion about it, or he's got our back on it. Like, he's all, if we need him for something for the website that we're doing, if we like, you're in. And that's whenever I think of the people that are the go-to people, it's the Patreon people, because obviously, like, you know, it takes a lot for them to contribute. And man, for you guys, and you specifically, but also everybody else that, you know, has gone, you know, the extra mile to provide and help this show out, is just major thanks to you guys. Like, that's awesome that we have that. And, you know, it's more than anything, it's just a community. So bonus leg, Giga leg, Horizon leg. Those are the 3 tiers, $1 and $5 and $10. I suggest you just hop on the $1 train, and if you like it, and if you want to increase at a later date, do it. Like, that's all we ask. Just get on $1, enjoy the content, and get in a setlist draft. The setlist drafts are a lot of fun. We did a fun one this past week, so it's just fun. It's just fun communicating with everybody, and you get an episode if you want to join the Gig Leg. You get a profile episode, which Curtis is going to have this week if you join the Horizon leg. And not just that, but like, this is the first time for the profile episodes, we're going to actually make those public. So if you need a little bit of a taste for what we do on Patreon, that's going to be your first taste, is we're going to start making those accessible to everybody, because we realize, you know, the people that want to listen to that aren't going to become patrons because they're, you know, they're family members and they're close friends of people that aren't necessarily major Pearl Jam fans. So we're going to make that a free for everybody on the platform, and maybe a little bit of a sample of what we do on Patreon. But before we get any further, I just want to thank our one new patron this week, and that's Jeff Kohler. He's actually been on the show before, and now he's a patron. So we thank him, and we thank everybody
thanks,
for joining in on that. So it's all cool stuff. if you want to head over, patreon.com/live on four legs or the Patreon app. I prefer the app. It's a lot easier. Just search Live on Four Legs. We're there. You know what we look like. So that's it. That's all of our sell on that. Let's get back into the music, the stuff that really matters. And we head back into Encore 1. It's just Ed by himself. And he mentions the football again, which I'm sure is going to be a little bit groan-inducing for the Hawkeye in the room here. He tells a story about this Walgreens in Tulsa, because Tulsa was the night before, and he was asked if he has a card. This is a real dad Ed kind of thing. Like, this is a typical 2014 Ed story. And the woman at the counter wants Ed to sign up for a Walgreens card, and he's like, I can't, because then you'll have my information. And if you see my name, Ed Vedder, there, somebody in the system is going to be like, oh my God, I have Eddie's phone number. Like, we get that. So he was kind of hesitant to tell this woman who he was. And when he did and said, oh, I'm in a band, I'm in Pearl Jam, the woman's like, oh, I picked my daughter up from your show last night. And kind of was like, oh, I'm sorry that you had to go pick her up at 12:30, but that means she had a pretty good time. So, then the conversation ends with him saying, did you know that it was John Lennon's birthday today? That's Ed trying to deflect the conversation away from himself. Very typical for him, but we do get two Beatles covers out of it. You've Got to Hide Your Love Away, and yeah, not a Beatles song, but a John Lennon song, Imagine. And You Got to Hide Your Love Away is the first time in 153 shows that it's been played, 5 years since 2009. That summer, I think they did a couple of summer dates before Chicago that year. I think it was played at one of those. And you get a good sing-along out of it. And you kind of, like, this tour was really the first instances where he did Imagine, too. And I felt like the crowd was really into Imagine on this one.
Yeah. Imagine, not my personal favorite, wildly popular in the building. Oh, people were loud for
Most
that.
building it's going to be.
The thing with Imagine, too, is that it's the most famous song that they cover. Like, everybody across the world knows this song. Like, it's one of the most well-known songs across the planet. And, like, usually they do, like, more of a deep dive and try to find those kind of hidden gems from a band. Like, we've talked about that. But, yeah, Imagine is a weird kind of choice for them because, yeah, any set it goes in, it's automatically the most famous song that gets played that night. Like, yeah, nobody doesn't know it. Yeah, I mean, it's obvious. Every crowd's going to react to it.
Imagine is the kind of song where, and this did happen, and at a festival show with Jack Johnson, and it's the kind of song that you want to bring up a guy like Jack Johnson on stage for, because he's gonna know it and everybody's gonna know it, and you don't have to worry about, well, do you know Not For You? Do you know Whipping? Do you know I'm Open? Like, no, but I know Imagine because everybody fucking knows Imagine. So that's easy for that kind of situation. Same kind of, it's an elevation above Rockin' in the Free World, but it also, like, it has that solo vibe to it where at most times they do play it solo. I kind of like it better when they do it full band. I can say that about just about every song that Ed can do solo in relation to though. So I've talked about that before. I'm not as much of a solo Ed guy as I am just play the full band stuff.
Yeah, cool little diversion there. These are one that I love and one that's kind of meh, and yeah, then it's tonally, it does a great dovetail into Elderly Woman.
Yeah, and everybody's still sitting at this point. I thought that was interesting to, instead of getting everybody back and just standing up for one song there, everybody's sitting down, which is very interesting, but it kind of gave Elderly Woman that vibe instead of, it wasn't really a sing-along vibe after Imagine. It had more of a campfire and more somber tone to it felt.
Yeah, we're ramping up a little bit here. This isn't like the opener to Moline where we're just kind of going to get in there and it starts like soaring right away. We're just kind of working our way back up.
and they don't do anything like they don't do, they don't turn around for the crowd like they usually do with an elderly woman in the encore. It's more serious. It kind of feels almost like a bridge school version, an electric kind of bridge school version of Elderly Woman.
Yeah, I agree.
But again, the crowd sounds great on it. Give them credit.
Absolutely. And that kind of leads you into, I kind of teed it up before, this whole encore is all known hits. It's Given to Fly, Lightning Bolt, Jeremy, Black, Rearview Mirror. Everybody's going to know every one of these songs. Like, this is going to hit a lot of people in the sweet spot. Notable stuff, like, I don't know if a lot of this stuff is interchangeable. That's my one critique of it is this Given to Fly too much different than any other Given to Fly? Is this Jeremy too much different than any other Jeremy? And I defer to Curtis on this because I wasn't there. So my opinion doesn't count on this matter.
We're, this second 2/3 of it, my buddy Lee and I, we are flying for this. Like, we start at Given to Fly and we do not come down until the strobe lights are done on Rearview Mirror. Like, we're absolutely in the zone. And Lightning Bolt's kind of that one song from this era that could kind of keep up. So
in the big boy category.
Yeah. And I think just as far as being like that big kind of getting to these like soaring moments. So yeah, I shit on this album all the time, and this song hung in there. It was we were absolutely in the zone. I know I'm the last hardcore fan standing to ride for Jeremy here.
I was going to mention that.
Per our deprogrammed.
And it didn't get its redemption moment in the trash episode.
It certainly did not. And you know what? That's okay. I'll live on this island and I'll die on it. In this version, it's not, we're not reinventing the wheel. The version that I listen to is the official boot, and the people aren't really loud there, but like, it's just like every arena show, your section is loud and you're certain that the whole building is loud. So we were freaking out for it. If we want to get into like Black already,
might as well.
Yeah.
The one thing I just want to point out real quick, no talk. This is less talk, more rock right here. Everything is back to back to back to back to back.
Yeah, this is definitely an encore this is what you play in a place you'd never played before. Yeah. This is fan service.
Very, very great fit for my friend. This was his first show. He references back this little stretch here, and we loved it. Really good version of Black. The tease at the end is...
Did you kind of feel it?
Yeah, well, it's... Instead of like We Belong Together, he starts with Rearview Mirror.
Did you kind of see that Rearview Mirror was going to be the next song coming out of this?
I was like, at the beginning of Black, I was like, we've had 1, 2, 3, 4. Black's the 8th song of the encore, so I thought that might end it. And like we kind of jam it out and you do something kind of non-traditional, and that's the end of the set. And then he starts talking, saying the rearview mirror lyrics, and I'm like, oh yeah, this will work just fine.
Yep.
So that stretch, we were flying high.
I mean, yeah, come on. What else do you have to say about Black? It's a highlight whenever it shows up. And yeah, Black and Rearview Mirror, absolutely fantastic.
And other little notable things, a lot of Nebraska pandering during the first two, faster songs in the encore. Give It a Fly has that, Made It Out to Lincoln Out of Smoke in a Tree. Lightning Bolt has the Towards Nebraska instead of the Great Northwest. Like, it's fan service, and I get it. Like, that, it makes a lot of sense, and it kind of brings the people that, if this is their only show on the tour, it makes them feel like they're a part of something. Yeah, it's definitely special moments. And Rearview Mirror ending the set, too. Like, it's a killer bridge. The entire band feels synced up on it and are just feeding off everybody's power. And it's a classic version. Balls out until the end. And, then you get into the end, Ed chucks his guitar up in the air, catches it, and you're kind of left with this what the hell happens next kind of feel, because it feels, in most cases, if you end the show here, wow, that was pretty good. That was pretty damn good. They have a whole another encore to go. So here it is.
I wanted Ed to smash that guitar at the end of this. I want to just...
I think guitars are precious for him now. Yeah. It has to be a really, really shitty guitar for him to do that with.
But we haven't mentioned Cameron on this. At the end of Rearview Mirror, Matt Cameron just shines. Like, that's fantastic. Some fantastic drum work on the end of Rearview Mirror.
Encore 2 mentions at the beginning, the crews have been great and it's been a real pleasure to work with everybody. Do my eyes deceive me on a normal basis, or the last couple times that we did Smile? Because Smile in Jacksonville, Jeff and Stone were still in their normal spots. Am I right?
That's right. Yeah, they normally don't switch places. That was interesting.
They actually switched places this time. Instead of switching the guitars, they just... Okay, I'll go to where the guitar is, and Stone's like, yeah, fuck it, I'll pick up Jeff's bass over here, play with Mike a little bit, and it was cool because right away Stone and Mike are like, hey, how about this? This is kind of cool. This is kind of fun, and then we get into Smile, and like, while you don't have a song like this in the first encore, this is the fan service for serious collectors that are coming to this show and maybe they're like, okay, well, we got God's Dice and Insignificance, but that encore one, I've heard it all before. You don't get Smile a whole lot. It's only been played 77 times. At that point, what had been played? 67. They've played it 10 more times since that show. So it's been in favor. It's been in favor since this night. I would say that 10 times in the last 6 years, however many tour years that is better than most. So, especially off No Code, but like that, you're giving some fan service here right off the bat. That's kind of nice.
That's absolutely what it felt like for me. In the first set, you mentioned we stretched the catalog a little bit, and we got probably more deep cuts than what I would have guessed. If I set a line on deep cuts, we had already hit the over before the first set was going. So, and the way Encore 1 went with very, we got a new album to promote, but other than that, very, very much staples. And when I didn't notice it until Ed mentioned it, saying Jeff on guitar, and I was like, oh, okay. So I don't know if I wasn't like focusing up or just, but when he mentioned it, I was like, oh, I know what this means. So I I was very pleased to
Dance of the Clairvoyants, of course.
Yes.
And yeah, maybe a little dress rehearsal for Moline here, a little bit too. And he changes the lyric to, where he adds the when the sun don't shine, and he throws in, like Seattle, like that's where we're from. And I love Jeff really getting into the guitar playing. Like, he goes up to Stone's amp and he's like throwing on the whammy bar and like doing the feedback, and like, it was fantastic. This is party atmosphere all the way.
For sure. And coming out of it, you got an OTOTO, and there's no addressing it. There's nothing like you have to really know music, and you have to know your Bruce to know this song, because I feel like sometimes I'm like, yeah, I kind of know Bruce. I'm kind of a Bruce fan, and then I realize, okay, I know about 3 or 4 albums of his, and I kind of falter off after some point. And I realize I just don't know the Nebraska album too well. And I feel like when they played the song, I'm like, yeah, it's very familiar because it's very Bruce, but I don't know it all that well.
I hit the cover, baby, clean and check. With her line blown up, she saw me like a turbo jet. Propped her up on the backyard. Concrete blocks for new clothes, plate and a new set of shocks. Down at the car wash, check the plugs and points. I'm going out tonight, I'm gonna rock this joint. Early North Jersey industrial skyline. I'm all set, Cobra just a creeping through the night time. Gotta find a gas station, gotta find a way for this third shot for a spooky night. When you're all alone, gotta hit the gas, cause I'm a losing ground. I got 3 more hours, but I'm covering ground. The bars don't take me, so it put me on the night to go now. Right to get back to where my baby lives in the wee hours. Your mind gets hazy, ready, only left times. Leave it to my baby, underneath the overpass to know it's a party light. Switch, good night, good luck, 1, 2, how was she diving? Wonder when she was a boy outside the counter at the 65 big boy fight. She on the front seat, she's sitting on my lap. Well, I'm leaning on a Texaco. Now I'm around the round of a trapping on with those big brown eyes and make your heart stand still.
As far as blues songs go, as far as OTOTOs, and as far as, performing this for a crowd that deserves some hometown treatment after, 22 years of not playing there, this was a pretty terrific version.
Yeah, I don't consider myself a hardcore Bruce fan, but at the time I absolutely recognized it. So I guess kind of I am. I know more Bruce than I thought I did, but very good version. You can tell that it's Bruce, but Ed makes it his own, doing something special for the town. And why wouldn't we? It's just a very Pearl Jam. Ed making this set, it's just so them. Like, here's an album that's mostly acoustic, and let's find the most rockin' thing on there. And
yeah, I think it's the only song on that album that has electric guitar on it.
Right.
That's
right.
I think I'll out myself. Like, I only own Born to Run in Nebraska. I think Nebraska's probably my favorite album of his, because it's a little more weird. It's a little more acoustic. It's got a little more of a feel to it. I like it a lot. It's got Atlantic City, which people know, and State Trooper and stuff like that. So, but yeah, I mean, you almost feel like Ed put this show on the tour just so they could play something off the Nebraska album.
Oh, that was definitely in his mind. Bread plus butter equals bread and butter, and that's where we sit at the end here. And I think this is pretty appropriate. Just play what you know, and play what the crowd knows and what they expect, and let them go home happy.
Yeah, exactly. Send them home in a good mood.
Alive, rocking in the free world, Yeller Ledbetter. And I thought the solo on Alive was really good. The Rockin' in the Free World house lights get turned up, and Stone takes front and center with his solo. Ledbetter, maybe I'll hold off on Ledbetter for a second. Like, let's just keep it to these 2 songs, and let's give Ledbetter its moment. So, what else from all that then?
I don't know if it shows up on the bootleg, but I started the yeah chant during Alive. I hope.
Nice.
I want everybody to be aware of that.
Okay.
He was
One
ready.
for the notes.
Yep, just that one. Definitely put that on the notes. That I'm definitely, absolutely, positively the only person who started that chant.
But I thought it was cool too. You get Ed, kind of going off to the side. You get to see some of the crew, like you see kind of the lighting setup and the soundboard there. That was kind of cool to see. And Ed's out in the crowd doing the whole thing. Again, there was a nice parallel moment between Jeff and Stone, always in the live. That's going to be their moment. You think back to the old days. I wonder, it's still so cool that we're 24 years in at this point, but still cool that they can kind of have a moment playing the song from that long ago. And Rockin' in the Free World, I thought it was cool because he does the red, white, and blue, and he kind of catches himself like, oh, I should have just red and white. I mean, just red and white for the flag, like for the. He kind of caught himself like, oh, I meant to do it. And then there's some very he's very proud of himself, like playing with those tambourines. I think there's a moment where he catches it behind the back, and he's so happy with himself. It's a fun moment.
For sure. And, all the energy and all the goodbyes that they're about to share right here, it leaves you off with a really, really fun moment, and one that's, I would think, would be everlasting from this show. So you get Ledbetter, and obviously it's coming. I think this is a Ledbetter show and not an Indifferent show or a Baba and on a cover. This is a Ledbetter show, pretty firmly Ledbetter. And you start the song, and right away Ed's mic isn't working, which, okay, it was working during Rockin' in the Free World. Why the hell does it not work now? So it leads to this really funny sequence of events where he's handed another mic and that doesn't work. Then he's handed a beer bottle. He's like, okay, well, fuck it. I'll sing from the beer bottle. And while the whole thing is going on, the crowd is taking it. And whether they're mumbling the words or singing along to what the words are, that's another story. But you hear audibly that the crowd is singing along. And then right at the best part, he finally grabs a mic. He goes behind him. He finally grabs a mic. It's perfect the way he comes back into it. Nebraska and think the Lincoln show, I'm going to think of this because it's very unique and specific to them.
Yeah, very fun. And like if you scripted it, like if the whole thing was a work, the mic just starts to work at that like perfect moment, right?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
The official boot it doesn't reflect what my experience was during that little stretch, which is we're trying to sing the stuff for him, but the second mic and the beer bottle, like we're like really laughing, so that doesn't come through on the recording. But the cheer right before he gets the one that works is like really loud. One of the louder crowd moments of the whole night in my memory is like everybody just being like, yeah, like everyone's so excited that it finally works, and just impeccable timing.
It's the punchline to the comedy act, right? Because
Yes.
he's totally playing it up, and like again, credit to them, because how many bands, if that happens on the last night, would just get pissed off and walk off the stage and be like, or start yelling at the crew, like, you can go through the list of bands, like, but not Pearl Jam. Like again, we talk about whenever they screw up, they turn it into kind of a funny moment, and they're adorable. And yeah, he just kind of plays it up, and yeah, he's like, should I sing into the beer bottle? Maybe that'll work. So he starts doing that, and yeah, when it finally kicks in, he kind of realizes like, oh, I've got this wireless back here on the. He catches it, turns on and sings, and he's kind of has that moment like, it worked, like we did it. And yeah, it's a great. He plays it up perfectly. He's the consummate showman on that.
Let's not discredit what happens at the end here, because I feel like what happened at the end is really special. So the whole band kind of takes a side, and Matt gets off the kit, and Stone and Jeff take off their instruments, and it's just Mike, and the spotlight just firmly on Mike, or maybe not spotlight, but the house lights are off. So Mike walks up to the edge of the stage, very calmly just there's this little lip there, like right where the stage, like almost like a stair to hop back onto the stage if Mike or Ed wanted to run around. Which in a live, should have mentioned this, but Ed was doing the whole porch stick in a live, where going out to the crowd and getting to hold on to the barricade, which was very cool. Mike sits on that step, that little lip there, and he's just sitting and he's playing the end of the song. And I thought that was just such a sweet moment to kind of be intimate with the crowd and say goodbye as the last visual for the show. I really, really like that. Like that's another thing to me, especially you being on Mike's side, like seeing something like that. You got to be thinking like, this is how we go home. I'm very pleased with this.
Yeah, really like a cool treat. Like it's, and from an audio perspective, Mike always kind of gets the last word on those Ledbetter songs, but like really making that part of the show in a different way that I'd never seen before or since. I agree. It felt like they were doing it just for us here, there on that side. Mm-hmm. It was for sure a treat. Glad that you brought it up.
Yeah, it's very cool. Like, and again in the video, because the video is kind of put together, conglomerated from all these different fan videos all across the arena, and you don't really get a lot of really close-ups. But of course, everyone pulls out their phone when he goes down there. So if you guys don't have time to watch this whole video, you should. But definitely go and skip to the last 30 seconds of it, because it's a really close-up version of Mike, and he's just, like you said, he's just kind of relaxed. It's almost just like your friend playing guitar on his couch. He's kind of just chilled out, like, hey, I'm just gonna come down here and finish this off for you guys. And he says something, I was trying to lip read, it sounds like he says, oh, you guys were awesome, just to somewhat, just kind of to himself. It would have been a really cool moment for those people right in the front row. Great way to come and say thank you to them. And yeah, just a very chill way. Like the show started kind of low key and chilled out, and it ends that way. Very, very, very cool.
Look, they could have just run through a place like Nebraska and been like, you know what, fuck it. Let's give them all the A-sides and
cookie
call
cutter,
it a day.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. And they didn't do that. That great for them. And obviously, they kind of used the show as kind of an experiment. Let's go for some no-code songs. Let's see what we can do with them a week later. So you were the experimental city. That's how to put that. So, all right, 3 moments from this show. I'll kind of just off the last point we made and put Ledbetter into my final 3. Just the visuals and, it being one of the funnier moments and funnier aspects from the show. And the show is so light as it is that they're playing into that vibe. It's definitely a moment from this. I'm going to go all the way back to the beginning of the set and say Sometimes was a highlight for me too. Just the jam at the end, Ed getting really intense in the parts where you want him to get more intense sometimes, maybe if he doesn't do that live, and hit those notes where you want him to hit. You're kind of like, okay, well, all right, now on to the next song. But you really felt it after that. It really felt like something big. And then Porch is the showstopper from this show. And I feel like I don't get to say that too often anymore with shows that are post 2000. But this was a serious Porch show, 100%.
Yeah, very, very cool. I could go with a lot of that. I'm going to say my number 3 is Half Full. And, the moment with where he goes and sings to Lewis, that's a really cool moment. Anytime he kind of singles someone out in the crowd, and, that's special and would have been very cool. My number 2 is, I got to go with you. It's Porch when he throws the mic into the crowd, riding on those little balls that they have that come down. Awesome. And then, yeah, my number 1's Yellow Ledbetter. Absolutely. That, for it to be the end of the show, the way they handled it, just would have been send everybody out on a high. Just an unforgettable moment from this. Those are my 3.
There's a lot here, and there's a lot of honorable mentions here. Sometimes is absolutely one of them. Porch, just absolutely, they just let him cook. Got a very good version of that. At the first out of the gate rockers after the ballads go into Wygo. Whew, intense. Number 3 for me is Half Full. These riot act songs that don't get played a ton, and then they just let Mike cook on them. Holy cow. And when they hit, like a few weeks ago, there was some Get Right where he was just ripping that you guys talked about. It's not like what he plays on the album, but he embellishes it a little bit more too. Really, really like that.
And then I must mention, a week later, he would bring that song back at Memphis. They played Half
Yes.
Full. So they were feeling, that's a song you can say that they were feeling at that time.
I mean, just the soloing on that is like, you just knock your dick in the dirt quality. Like, I very, very much like that version of it. The number 2 for me is the last 3 songs of the first encore, Jeremy into Black, with the rearview mirror tag on Black into rearview mirror. Just insane stuff. Lee and I were on cloud 9. Loved that stretch. Of just kind of shows you these songs that you've heard 1,000 times before, 10,000 times before. How you're in the right mood, they're in the right mood. Like, it can really transcend into something really, really special. And then number 1 for me is my buddy Lewis and Insignificance. Tomahawk missiles are absolutely cost $1.5 million. And we got a $1.5 million like build and bridge on this song here too. Love this song, and that version of it was everything I could have possibly hoped for.
Very, very nicely done. All right. Now we get to rate all of this. And this is an interesting rating, and I don't want my rating to come off as harsh, because it's not at all. I kind of think that a 7 is right at average. And that's right. You know, if you're below 7, then there was something wrong with your show. I'm going to give this a 7.5. And that's because there were things I really, really appreciated and I really liked from this show. There are things to really like. Personally, if I were at the show, the Encore 1, knowing who I am and knowing what I look for in shows, it would have kind of bugged me. And that's what's holding me back from it a little bit. Listening to it on a bootleg, I'm totally fine with it. I'm totally fine going back to back with Given a Fly, Lightning Bolt, Elderly Woman, all those songs. Like, yeah, but personally, if I were at that show, I feel like I would have taken issue and would have said, you know what, the Encore is a spot where, you know, I'm expecting maybe something deep in their catalog, and you just didn't get it at all. Like, you Gotta Hide Your Love Away was brought out for the first time in over 100 shows, but it covers you don't really see in that same aspect, that same light as you do with the original. So it just, I can't give it an 8. I think it's 7.5, and I do recommend that people go and listen to it because it's a very good show, especially listening to the crowd and listening to just and them getting the relationship with the crowd as it goes along. It's for a lot of people that probably looked at the show notes on this and said, Lincoln, Nebraska, what the heck are they doing in Lincoln, Nebraska? Well, a lot of people probably said that, and our numbers for this week are not going to be as good as Drop in the Park or Ice Bowl. Oh, well, so what? There are thousands of Pearl Jam shows that we have to cover. This is one of them. So, 7.5. I think it's very solid. I think it's very solid.
Okay. That's fair. You know, and again, coming into this, you know, this isn't one that I've dug into very deep. I mean, I might have skimmed through the boot 1 or 2 times, you know, back in the day, but yeah, going into it surprised me a little bit. Like, I really liked the way it was constructed at the beginning. Like I mentioned, that no code Vitalogy to Versus to 10 run, I think was done very much on purpose. You know, you knew you weren't going to get a lot of lost dogs at the show, being that it was somewhere they'd never played before. But I think you got enough deep cuts, and, like, you know, knowing that, you know, the No Code show was only a few dates away, that you're getting some teases there, some really good crowd stuff. I'm in the 8.5 range, and I'm gonna give it an 8.5. I think it was great to listen to. I'd recommend it, absolutely.
Now to the opinion that really matters. Well, you were there.
This is a lot of Lightning Bolt, man. We got 33 songs, and 6 of them are Lightning Bolt. I'll respectfully disagree with you here, Randy, on Encore 1.
I know that was
I'm very much vibing with it, and like if you take out the title track Lightning Bolt, like those 5 songs that's like 1998 to me, man. Like we're really getting after it there. And maybe just because I was on site for it. I think if you took out Getaway and put In My Tree or put Mind Your Manners with Brain of Jay, we'd be talking about something like really, really special here. For being there, it was just like such a great fit for a first show, for someone who I took to their first show, who was still getting to know the band at that time. Not perfect, and of the number of shows that I've been able to go see, it's more in the middle. I'm a 9.
9. All right. To get 3 differing opinions is very interesting. That usually doesn't happen. That's why I like doing shows like this, because you can get that, and you are open to that, and you don't feel like for, a drop in the park, for example, like, well, everybody's just going to give that a 10 because it's very obvious that it deserves a 10 and everybody freaking knows it for a reason. But yeah, they don't know Lincoln because they know Moline from a week later, and they know from Milwaukee from a couple days after that, and they probably know Denver and Detroit too, because those were pretty big shows from this year as well. So this one, it might get hidden a little bit, but yeah, there are things to like. And I think that we hit on a lot of really, really good subject material from this that, go back. We probably played the songs. Go back and listen to the songs from this. Go back and listen to the boot. And yeah, it's here. So it's all here for you. Next week, I'm looking at the calendar here, and I'm seeing a 1-9 in the date column. I usually see a 2-0 in the date column, but I got 1-9, which only means one thing. Where are we going, John?
The 90s.
The 90s. And not just the 90s. This is the early 90s. This is an era that I feel like we haven't really tackled in a while. We haven't done a solid 1994 show in a very, very long time. So it'll be good to kind of swing back into this mix. This show that we're going to be doing, Ann Arbor, 1994. And this is another patron request from a patron named Frank. And he won't be on the show, but we'll be talking about him a little bit next week. And there are some things that happened at the show that are pretty notable. One is very important. The other is very interesting. So buckle up and get ready for that one, fellas. Curtis Hames, so great having you. You are a friend of the show.
Thank you so much, Curtis.
And you've hit the legacy point of, just being in the Trashy Six that, like, It feels like that still to me. I want to go back and do that again,
The results of that were, they kind of speak for themselves, but doing it at the time was really fun. Like, just the experience of it, the bickering, the intensity, like, hollering at someone who didn't vote when it was 5 out of 6. Yeah, that was a lot of fun. I think seeing how our minds change after seeing these songs live for Gigaton, maybe that'd be enough of a wrinkle to do it again. I don't know.
Maybe that's a good point. You can throw it in there whenever that does happen. We'll definitely keep it in mind. Well, we did it. We did Lincoln, Nebraska. That's right. This is a key point to end the show right now. And thank you all for listening in. This may be the end. We're here, but not for much longer. And although we may be parting ways, we heard it earlier today. I miss you already, and I miss you always. Thanks, everybody, so much for listening to another episode of us just babble about the band that we really, really enjoy a lot. We have to put it out there that we're not just, critics, and I don't like saying that we're critics of the band because we're really not. We're fans. We're fans just like you. That's why we're here. And if you like the show and you want to support some fans, you can subscribe to us on Patreon. You can subscribe on Apple, Spotify. Give us a little 5-star rating on Apple. That helps us become visible. That's going to help. Leave a comment and let people know what you think. And maybe somebody new will tune in and say, hey, that guy over there, they like Live on 4 Legs. Maybe I'll like Live on 4 Legs too. This is how the community works. It works by word of mouth. Word of mouth will tell you that Ann Arbor 1994 is going to be next week. Don't miss it. We shall see you then. Thank you again, Curtis, for joining us this week.
Yeah, and fuck Big Red and go Hawks.
No one in that crew has a Walgreens card? Come on, guys.
You know, I was at the Walgreens today in Tulsa, and you know how they say, do you have a Walgreens card? And I said, no, it's okay. I live in Seattle. And she said, oh, we have Walgreens there. And I was like, just trying to kind of politely get through the isn't it uncomfortable? You just want to buy some shit. Let me buy a pair of scissors and some mono glue and get me the fuck out. But I gotta go through this. Well, you really should have the card. And I said, oh, that's okay. I've got. Well, you're gonna save money though. You gotta sign up for the. So I said, okay. What do I gotta do? What do I gotta do? So just put your name and your phone number. I'm not giving fucking Walgreens my name and my phone number. I'm just not gonna do it for like $1.50. I like Walgreens, so they're fine, and I like this lady. She was great too, but she just wouldn't let me out of there without writing my name and my fucking phone number. I was like, I'm not doing. So I said, well, is there a place? Do you know of a place around here where I could get the same things and they'll actually let me pay for them? Walk out and after. So I finally said, I'm just in a band and I'm kind of private about my stuff. And she said, what band? And she said, oh my God, my daughters were at the show last night. I picked them up at fucking 12:30 and you kept them out late. And